Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Julie Wolfington, and I am the Energy and Sustainability Leader for Boland. So hopefully some of you joined us for our first class. It was last week. It was called Sustainability 101. This is the second of our classes in this little two-part series. If you're interested in seeing the first class, the sustainability class, please let us know. We do have it recorded, but the intent for this little series really kind of, as I mentioned last week, came from you guys. We're hearing from a lot of our clients and our partners that they're getting asked to not only run the buildings, but to now, being tasked with sustainability and energy efficiency goals. So these classes really are focused on trying to help you guys do exactly that. So the first class, we went into the broad concepts of sustainability. And this class, we're going to zero in a little bit more on just the energy side of sustainability. So what we're going to do today in the next hour or so is to talk about what are those terms. We want to make sure you guys can talk the talk. What's the difference between KW, KWH, where does energy come from, and things like that. And then we want to talk about how does a building use energy. Once you understand and have that foundation of how a building uses energy, you can help save it. And not only consumption, but also demand. And that's what we're trying to look to help you guys do, save money and energy. The third bullet there, we're going to go through quite a few ECMs, or energy conservation measures. We want to make sure that we give you guys the tools to identify these energy gremlins, as I like to call them, in your buildings so that you can save money and do a lot of that work yourself. A lot of ECMs don't cost anything to do. It's a matter of recognizing that they're there. And then we're going to talk about, for the ECMs that do cost money, where can you get some free money? And also what's going on in terms of legislation in our area. All right, so why are we here? We kind of talked a little bit about this last week. Many people think of Boland as an HVAC company. We definitely are that. But what's interesting is that for many of you who don't know this, HVAC is generally 40 to 50% of the electric bill. So that makes HVAC an awfully big hunk. So when our customers are really looking to save energy, they come to us. HVAC systems are complex. Every single one of them is different. Every building has different needs. And so really, understanding how to do that in the most cost-effective way is very important to lowering the consumption and demand of a building. So, in terms of a worldly perspective, why is that important? Well, buildings use 40% of the energy in the US. That's huge. So if you think about if HVAC is 40 to 50% of that, you can see that line at the bottom. HVAC systems account for almost 20% of all energy consumption in the US. That's a huge number. So the goal is to minimize the impact as much as possible. None of us want to give up air conditioning. We love it, but we want to reduce the environmental impact of that, but also reduce the operational cost of wasting energy. All right, so we want to talk a little bit about where does our energy come from. So this kind of depends on where you're at geographically, but you can see here in this pie chart, so the energy mix for our region, and again, please note this was in 2018, but it's the most recent one that's been published for our region. But you can see the mix of nuclear, coal, gas, and renewables, and then there's a tiny little sliver of other. But those are the main fuel sources for generating electricity in our area. That mix is going to change and has changed since 2018. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like in a minute. You can see I've got on here PJM. So who's PJM? So I think it's important to understand, again, we know that our electricity comes from power generation sources, right? We've looked at those. So once the electricity is generated, it actually goes to a wholesaler. So the wholesaler for our region is called PJM. And that geographic area spans about 13 states, I believe. All are part of 13 states and District of Columbia. So PJM is our RTO, or Regional Transmission Organization. So again, they're basically the wholesaler. They buy the electricity from the generators and then they resell it, and then they sell it to resellers. So in our area, that looks like Pepco or Dominion or any of whoever you're actually getting your power bill from. So again, PJM is an RTO. They coordinate the movement of wholesale electricity in our area. They are neutral. They're regulated by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. But the reason for that is because they are, the intent is for them to provide fair access to the transmission system, the electricity transmission system, for competing suppliers and energy users. So what that means, for in our particular area in Maryland and DC, we have what's called deregulated. So we can choose who our reseller is. We can't choose who our wholesaler is or who our generator is unless we want to do on-site renewables. But we can choose who our reseller is, and we can go out on the market and find a better price. So that's something that I definitely encourage all of you to do if you're in the DC, Maryland area. If you don't know how to do that, we're happy to help you do that, because you can hopefully get a lower rate. If you're in Virginia, you cannot do that. You are regulated. You have to buy your power from who you're currently getting your bill from. All right, so I think this is also really interesting to note, and again, to kind of build that foundation for you of your energy knowledge. So you can kind of see in the graph that shows the history projections, you see that line, that's 2020 line, the graph on the left, okay? Thank you, Meaghan. She's kind of got the cursor. So that's where we are right now with our fuel mix. Again, this is a fuel mix. So you see the legend over there. We've got natural gas in blue, renewables in green, red for nuclear, and black for coal. So you can see that that's our current mix. And where our line is for 2020, you see that, right now we're at 19% coal, 19% nuclear, 21% renewables, 40% gas. So if you extend that out to 2050, you notice that those percentages change pretty dramatically for all of the mixes, but specifically for renewables. So if you say, okay, what are those renewables? What does that mix look like for renewables? And where are we seeing the growth in the US? And I'm specifically saying in the US because throughout the world, that mix is going to look different for different countries, depending on where their investments are. So you can see, again, we've got our dotted line with 2020. Right now we are at 16% solar. That's projected by 2050 to go to 47%. So, and you can see all of the other different types of renewables as well. So it's really interesting to see where that investment is going. It's going to change the grid, and, kind of understanding what that mix is going to look like. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Meaghan now.
Thanks, Julie. So now that we understand, what is energy, where is our energy coming from, we're going to dig a little bit more into your energy consumption and demand. These are common terms we talk about, and they are also on your electric bill, so you might be familiar with them, but not know the extent of them. So first, we'll go through demand. Demand is known as the snapshot of measure of power required at a certain moment. So it's in kW or kilowatt, as you see right here. So if you think about your car, you have a speedometer, and that measures how fast you're going at a given time. So that is the same as your demand. And now with the car analogy, we'll do consumption. Consumption is, like your odometer. It measures the cumulative miles you've traveled in a given time. And that's equivalent to your building consumption. You're measuring how much energy you're using during a given time, whether it be a day, a month, or a year. So now to look at this a little bit differently, the graph on the left represents a building's operation during the day. So here's the time on the bottom from midnight to midnight, and then demand going up. We see here the first few hours of the day, the demand levels are low, which is good. It means that the demand's reduced overnight. And then starting at 5, we see a gradual increase in the demand, meaning equipment's turning on, people are coming into the building. And this is kind of continuous throughout the day, increases. There might be some solar load in the afternoon, and then as people are leaving the building, systems are shutting down, so the demand is low again. You kind of see that with my cursor. So when we look at this red line is demand. It's measured every 30 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on the time interval for the system. So we have that marked here, and then we highlight the peak demand, so the highest demand for the day. This occurred at noon at like 775 kilowatts. To understand this completely, we have energy consumption below. So this is how much, was used over the day, and this is around 62,000 kilowatt hours. So now a little bit more on demand. We're going to focus on why is it so important. So again, you have electric charges, or your electric bill has demand charges and consumption charges. But thinking about demand a little bit more, we see, you have one light bulb, you're running one light bulb, it's 100 watts. You run it for 10 hours, so therefore you're consuming 1,000 watt hours. And you only need one power plant to meet this demand because over time it's not too much on the grid. But the bottom of example, we have, about 10 light bulbs, 100 watts per light bulb. So we have 1,000 watts of light for only 1 hour. Yes, you're still consuming 1,000 watt hours of consumption, but you need multiple power plants to meet this demand for the 1,000 watts at this given time. So it's a small example, but it just kind of helps you understand. Power plants are designed to prepare for the greatest demand needs, so they also need your help to reduce the load on the plants. So again, looking at a building demand profile, this is a little different than the previous one. Here we have time on the bottom, but this is like the course over a week rather than just one day. And then we have demand again going up. So first we'll just start with the weekdays. We have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So for starting on a Monday, we have the demand starting to increase again. As the systems are turning on, the building's becoming a little more occupied. We see a slight drop in the afternoon. That could be people going out to lunch, whatever. And then increase again in the afternoon. And this is normal. Again, it's like the solar load, depending on just how the system has to, keep the building conditioned. And then once, buildings unoccupied, systems are turning off, the equipment, we see it decrease at nighttime. So that's good. It's found its base load while the building's unoccupied. And then again on Tuesday morning, following my cursor, we see the systems turning on gradually, kind of fluctuates during the day, another afternoon peak, and then again, quick drop off. So it's a quick turn off on these systems during the weekdays, and then unoccupied or lower demand once unoccupied, and this continues throughout the week. What we don't always like seeing is this red highlighted area. This is a lot of stuff turning on and off on the weekend. This should be completely flat if the building is unoccupied. So this behavior suggests there's something causing equipment to turn on, whether it be, set points or schedules. And this just suggests, there's extra energy being used, which means unnecessary spending. So this behavior, we'd like to see a flat line during the weekend and try to reduce this over time. Now, one more demand graph. So similar to last one, it's looking at a lot of days, but instead of in a weekly time span, this is all the days kind of laid on top of each other in the month of January, so we can kind of see what patterns are continuous or if there are patterns, and what demand we should expect throughout the month. So just for your understanding, we have midnight to midnight, and then demand increasing, and then these are a variety of different day types in January, which small detail for this graph. So we have demand pretty low. This is great. It's about 200 all different days overnight, and then equipment is slightly turning on around 6:30, but we see a significant peak up to 1,200 kilowatt hours during the day, and that's at 7 a.m. So knowing this building, this is electric VAV reheats turning on at once, and we try to recommend preventing this behavior because this is a demand peak that you might be paying for the next year, depending on your electric rate structure. But we do see this demand peak here, slight drop. Another one, so there might be scheduled, but we still have significant demand peaks. And then it just slowly decreases during the day. We ideally would see, I don't know if you can see this red line where my cursor is, it's a slight increase and pretty flat. And this, for example, is 600 kW less than this demand peak. So that's pretty significant decrease, or increase rather. So this is just to show, we see this often, especially in Virginia area, electric VAV reheats. A way to prevent this demand peak is to start turning equipment on sooner. So your consumption might increase, but it could help you prevent this electric demand cost that is associated with the peak. But we will continue to go through some strategies later on to help prevent this demand peak and associated costs. So just real quick, dig in demand costs a little bit. I mentioned Virginia especially, you have some significant demand charges compared to DC and Maryland. This is kind of an eye chart, but I just want to highlight there are different demand charges on this bill. The green lines, that highlights the three charges: distribution demand charge, on-peak demand charge, and transmission demand charge. The total of these three demand charges are 65% of your total electric bill, while just the on-peak demand charge is 45% of your electric bill. So if we're bringing this back to real life, the previous slide, if we can reduce your demand by 200 kilowatts, say like here it's 1,223. So if we reduce that, say by 200 to about 1,000 kilowatt hours, you can save almost $4,000 for this 1 month. So trying to control your demand peak and maybe adjust your scheduling depending on what your rate structure is can help you save money that you didn't even realize you could do. Does anybody have any questions you want to pop into the Q&A section, or if not, we can keep on going. We're just going to transition a little bit to what to do next now that you understand demand and consumption. Okay. So where do we start? So again, we're getting through this, we understand where energy comes from, how buildings use it. We want to now create a measuring stick, which is our favorite term for baseline. As Peter Drucker says, you can't manage what you can't measure, and what measures gets improved. So again, our measuring stick is our baseline. First, you need to create a baseline to figure out where you've been, so your historical usage, where you're going, and this could be in comparison to like a personal goal or a corporate goal, for example, like an Energy Star score. So now, like, what do we measure against? So here's a list of what we use to measure from overarching legislation codes, which we've seen a lot more of now, to specific equipment performance, chiller plant performance, and also even like the efficiency in a data center with your PUE, a power usage effectiveness rating. All you need to do is, create a baseline to benchmark. This could be your Energy Star score, 2 years of historical data, a building certification, and then again, just benchmarking will help you and us improve your building by understanding your existing consumption patterns, and then just help us know ways to save. So going to help identify opportunities for saving.
And just to chime in there real quick, Meaghan, yes, another thing, we stress this a lot with benchmarking, because benchmarking doesn't save you money by itself, but it helps us and you understand, or your partner and you understand where you are. Because if you can't, that way you can say, okay, I'm doing well, or, oh boy, I've got some work to do. So, that helps you understand how are you doing compared to your average building, or like other buildings of your same type. So those rating systems and those benchmarks help us understand, okay, how are you doing with reference to your neighbor? How are you doing with reference to, if you're a hospital, helps you understand how you're doing with reference to another hospital. So again, that understanding where you're at, and then figuring out, okay, what are the business goals? What are your goals? That helps you and us, if we're your partner, help you figure out how to get from point A to point B.
Yes, thanks, Julie. So you can actually measure any type of usage in your building. Here's a list, for example, electricity, gas, water, steam, or hot and chilled water. You use these, you convert it to, you compare these units by your energy usage intensity, also known as EUI. First, you convert your annual usage to kBTU, and then you divide that by your square footage of the building. So, for example, on the bottom here, we have an EUI graph for an office building, and it's a rollover monthly EUI and compares the building to an Energy Star certified EUI office building. This graph suggests there's still an opportunity to save money in your building, although you're already at a 70. So you're almost at, a very efficient building compared to everybody around you, but there's still opportunity to save. So having this goal in mind allows you to kind of plan, figure out, how do you get there, and knowing what potential savings there are that can help you also finance a project. So seeing here, there's, $58,000 almost by reaching your score. You can think about, if you invest in a project, this can help your payback. And then that way you're reaching your Energy Star score, but also saving money and investing in your building.
So just another thing to tag onto that, Meaghan, you said it really well. So, if you're wondering, hey, how did they come up with that number, that 58,000 number? There's actually a tool within your Energy Star portfolio manager that will make that calculation for you. We can also do it for you as well, but there is a tool that you can do that on your own. That number is extremely important, because that number represents the money that, you know, based off of what your goal is, that's the amount of money that you're currently handing to Pepco that you could be reinvesting back in your business. And you guys heard me say this last week. So again, for your, you know, when you say, okay, well, I don't know how much money I should put into my building. I don't know what my project size, I don't know what my budget is. Well, if your procurement people say, my ROI threshold is 5 years. Okay, so take that number, 58,000 times 5. So, and that helps you understand what your project size is. We go into that a little bit more in detail in the previous class, in the sustainability class. So let us, you know, we're again, if you want to look for that link.
Yeah, and also we're happy to help you discuss any potential projects, especially after the next few slides. So kind of as Julie mentioned, we have a list of ECMs, so energy conservation measures, to review today. There is a lot here, and we're just kind of helping you generate some ideas and figure out what might work in your building. You know your building best, so all these might not be appropriate solutions, but you know, we can talk more about this later. Or you just might, you know, want to take action on something that we discuss in one of these slides. And then real quick, we have it organized by no cost, low cost. So that's something you might do in-house or something that might be just like a small fee. And then we have low cost and then capital. So here are, again, some things that you might be able to do on your own or just working with your, for example, the first one, your BAS engineer. And so what we always do is we recommend building engineers to do a self-check of their building automation system quarterly. This includes schedules and overrides. Maintaining your system is one of the best ways you can save money. This could be, you know, there might have been an event and you had to run your equipment till 9 p.m. Might have forgotten that the schedule's running till 9. So for the month after, you know, you had everything running till 9 when your building's empty at 5. So things like this will help you catch those and then help you save money going forward. We also recommend like an easy thing you can do, or, you know, you can contact somebody to help you program this, is to investigate your temperatures for unoccupied hours and also during heating and cooling seasons. Just changing your set points by a degree can help you save money for your cooling cost and heating cost. And then also another example is just having your condenser tubes cleaned. This will help regularly make the water cleaner and then reduce excess energy. We have a water treatment team at Boland, so our specialist said that, you know, if there's 10 to 20% opportunities for energy savings if there's scale on the condenser tube. So we have to go in the system, but, you know, if it's there, it's a real energy opportunity for savings. A few more. We have continuous no cost, low cost opportunities. Cleaning your filters can save 15% of energy depending on how frequently you clean them. I love this picture. It's, you know, you don't want a Band-Aid solution for a leak, especially like compressed air, steam systems. Any sort of leak is literally money just blowing out. So if you can work on that, it will pay back very quickly. And as I've kind of mentioned earlier, investigating your equipment operation. If a fan is short cycling, that kind of hurts the equipment life, but also hurts your energy usage because just turning on and off. So this can save like 15% or more, up to 40% of your HVAC savings. And as I mentioned earlier, we do like flat demand lines, so that will always kind of give back. Now the low cost opportunities, these are mostly, some of them are BAS related, but just to highlight here, we really support doing an energy audit. And actually, depending on how you proceed with an energy audit, there are incentives to help you cover the cost of the project and tie it in with implementing some of the ECMs found in your audit. So that's, something to always think about. And even if your building's efficient or you think it's efficient, it's still potential opportunity for you. And then also looking at audit, you might know your chiller's old, but there might be more to your chiller plant. You could look at how the equipment's running, your set points, your sequencing, but then also tie in fenestration or insulation. So I like a energy audit to help you find, a list of ECMs that you can take action on. Another example of a low cost project is integrating your building automation system and energy data into an analytics platform. Applying analytics to a BAS will help you find little gremlins that you cannot see in a normal day. This looks past, the operational gaps and, like, say, a schedule, and helps you find inefficiencies like a outdoor air sensor that's not calibrated correctly, so you can't enable your economizer, and now you're running mechanical cooling when you could really just use the outdoor air and economize. These inefficiencies are alerted in the system, and it helps make your building run more efficient. I noted here program BAS optimizations. There's a list of optimizations. It depends on your system, of course, so all of them might not apply, but we look at, optimum start-stop, condenser water reset, chilled water reset based on like the outdoor temperature, hot water reset, supply air temperature reset, also based on the outdoor air temperature. So there's a lot of programming that you can do to help save money based on the outdoor air conditions or the time of day in your building.
One quick thing to add on to that, most of the building automation systems that we see are capable of doing these sequences. They're just not in there. So whether it was just they were never set up to begin with or somehow it got overridden or whatever, most building automation systems are capable of doing this, and it's just a matter of programming them. So just because your system doesn't have it, if you have a relatively modern building automation system, your system can probably do all those things that Meaghan talked about. It's just a matter of getting somebody to program them. Those are generally really quick payback ECMs.
Yeah, they help you save. So talking about payback ECMs, your building is your bank. I love this little graphic of, you see some dollars with your buildings. There's a few calculations that you can do, or, we can work together on, or whoever you might be working with to help you figure out if a project qualifies. This might be figuring out what your payback criteria is or your ROI, return on investment. We recommend talking to your procurement people so you can get a guidance on what type of project you can do, and then what, can be implemented. Just real quick here, we have an example of calculating a payback. AFD on the chiller, that's the same thing as a drive-on chiller, just train terms. So don't worry about that. But we're trying to figure out, can we justify adding a drive to a chiller? So we have to look into how the plant is operating, figuring out the savings for each drive, the available incentive, and the maintenance cost. So how much does a project cost? And that'll help you figure out, a simple payback. And if your procurement says, we can do anything under 5 years, there you go. You justify this project. So having that conversation helps you know what you can do and then kind of what your boundaries are about how you can spend the money. So this last one, capital improvements, ECMs, these are what's in its name. It's kind of a list of projects that don't really have a simple payback criteria, but they are something that's good that will improve your building's operation, maybe make you a little more energy efficient or reach Energy Star certification. So for example, we have, a smart building, little graphic to the right. This will help you, say if you tie all your systems into one, make a smart building, you'll be able to figure out what spaces might need air conditioning based on who's in the building. We also recommend doing equipment replacement for more efficient system. Or if you have two big old gas boilers and now, maybe you can, and you're running one in the summer, maybe you can change your boiler system so you have a few smaller boilers so you're not necessarily running this large boiler in the summer. These are kind of larger projects that help you save money in the end. And then one more example I just want to highlight here. There's a lot of sub-metering projects that you can do, and that helps you look at your data on any sort of, look at your system and granular data, so you can really see how everything is operating. And you can even save money by sub-metering your cooling tower makeup water. This helps you get a different charge from your water supplier. So if you're in Virginia, it could be like Arlington County, and you only have to pay for the water. You won't have to necessarily pay for the sewage fee, which is $9 per kgal. So that investment also pays back pretty significantly.
So the last, Meaghan, you want me to take this last?
Yes.
This is my favorite bullet here, the bundled solution. So here's the thing, every ECM is going to have a payback because you're saving energy, right? However, those paybacks range tremendously. We were talking about building automation system sequence changes. Those are going to have a really quick payback. Lighting is going to have a quick payback. Replacing an old chiller with a new chiller, that's going to be a higher, that's going to take more years to pay back than, making some small changes to a sequence, right? However, you might need a new chiller. So that's one thing about all these ECMs. One way to look at these, we have a lot of our clients that come to us with an operational problem. Once we hang energy savings on it, that opens them up to, such as, I have an ailing chiller, I need a new chiller, I don't have money. We say, okay, let's hang that energy sign on it. Let's call it an energy project. Now we're getting money from the utility. Maybe it opens us up potentially to financing, all these different things, right? And it turns a capital project into a project that has a payback. So when I say bundled solutions, we encourage customers who have a lot of things that they need to or want to do. Say you've got a relatively low Energy Star score, you've got that chiller that's being held together with duct tape and Band-Aids, and you also have you've got old lighting. Well, if you do the lighting project and it pays back in a year and a half, well, that's fantastic. But then now, 2 years later, you're going to your procurement person, you're saying, I need a new chiller, but the payback is, say 5 years, and they say, well, that's just a little too much. However, if you would have bundled those projects together, then you're looking at a 3-year payback. Right? So, I would encourage those of you who do have a lot of stuff to do. We love the low-hanging fruit, but it can be really maximize the value of it when you bundle it with the other things that you might need to do in your building. So, and also for incentive money, utility incentive money, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, there's incentive money that can go towards making some of those operational changes, but you have to enter into the incentive agreement first. So just saying, before you make any changes, make sure and check with your friends with, ICF or, whoever your utility incentive provider is. So we'll talk about that more in a minute.
So just one more thing on demand management. I tied this back in because I had thermal storage on the previous slide, but I wanted to dig into it a little bit more to show you guys what it means and how it works for a building. So we've seen the demand profile a little bit now, and we see the demand increase during the day and then turn off at night, and we still have this large demand peak on top. And so what thermal storage helps you do helps you reduce this demand peak during the day, and then it just transfers or uses the energy overnight. So demand is flat during the day and the consumption increases overnight, and you use that cooling to help condition your building the next day. So this behavior or system is frequently seen in Virginia, partially because there's more space, but also the higher demand charges helps justify this type of project. But if you can't do thermal storage, there are tools available to help you reduce your demand based on the grid's demand limits. This flexibility allows you to capitalize on incentives from utility when they say, hey, we're going to have a certain type of day. You can reduce your energy based on what the utility needs. And then there's also just software out there to kind of help you with that, so you don't even have to think about it. It'll just kind of work on its own based on the utility. So demand response programs are available for anybody to use. So now we've gone through a lot of ECMs. Not all of these ECMs, will fit your building, and you might know what would work at your building best. So if you want to improve your building, we can work together, discuss your building goals, your corporate goals, and then just figure out what might be the issue in your building, do a little diagnostics, like energy audit, and then make a plan to help make your building better.
All right. So one thing I want to add on to that, Meaghan, is that recipe that's specific to your building. Meaghan made a great point of that recipe is going to depend on not just what you're trying to do with your building, but your business goals. So one thing I would encourage you to do is talk to your facilities people, your building engineers. Those folks are, I said this in the last presentation, they're oftentimes tasked with just running the building and reducing the number of complaints. If you ask those folks know these buildings inside and out. If you ask those folks, say, hey, we're also tasked with saving energy. How can we do that? They're gonna have ideas. So be sure to include them. The other thing I would suggest is training. Building systems have evolved. They've changed. Constant training for those folks who actually operate the building automation systems, especially. And helping them understand, getting them into classes like this so that they understand that the operational impact, the energy impact associated with how they're operating the building. Okay, so how am I going to pay for this? So we're talking about all these ECMs. Obviously, use your facilities folks to the maximum extent possible to do as much as you can on your own or your existing service contracts. Work with your lovely partners. Oops, I forgot to turn on my camera. Work with your partners who can help you do that as well. So in terms of, Meaghan and I have alluded a couple of times to incentives, rebates, grants, loans. So all of that depends on what state you're in and who provides your power, or most of them do. So in terms of incentives, there are incentives from your utility provider. Free money for energy efficiency projects, period. They range in how they're different, but most, I think all of the utilities in our area offer them. There's also tax incentives. There's federal tax incentives for energy efficiency projects. It's called 179D, $1.80 a square foot for energy efficiency projects. Please look into those. That is a lot of money that people generally don't think to take advantage of. You know, one thing, I love this quote in the middle of this slide. It says energy efficiency, this is a quote from Maryland Energy Administration. Energy efficiency is among the least expensive ways to meet the growing electricity demands of the state. The government doesn't necessarily want to build new power plants. They want you guys to save energy, so they're putting a lot of money into doing so. There are grants, so there are energy efficiency grants on a federal level, on a state level for Maryland, not as much for Virginia, and on a local level. So your city may have energy efficiency tax incentives. Some of the energy efficiency grants. A grant, as you guys know, is straight up free money. It's not a loan, it's a grant. So, and some of those are really specific. So some of them might be, depending on, again, where you're located, there might be grants for electrification. So changing your building from, you know, gas and electric to all electric, because, you know, the point of that, we touched on, we actually dug into a lot in the previous session, but, you know, understanding that as renewables populate our grid more and more, electrifying your building is going to lower the carbon footprint moving forward. So there's efficiency grants for data centers, things like that in Maryland. So if you need loans, Montgomery County has a green bank, DC has a green bank. There are the DC Sustainable Energy Utility is there, as well as ICF. They're the companies that that manage the utility incentive programs. There are ways to finance energy efficiency projects. Like I said, I mentioned the green banks. There's also PACE with no money down. So for those of you who literally don't even want to put a penny down, if it is an energy efficiency project, you can get not only the incentives, the utility incentive money, but you can get that project depending on where you're at. You can get that project financed for $0 down. So there's a lot of different varying ways to get projects financed. There's private financing as well. Again, utility tax incentives, rebates, grants, all the stuff. So long story short, even if you have just a building project that you want to do, when you're replacing a piece of mechanical equipment, if you're replacing a light, an old thing with a new thing, it's going to save energy. So even if you don't care about energy, it's okay. Use these programs, because to get new infrastructure, new equipment in your building, use these programs. Okay, so what is the government doing about all this? Obviously, we're hearing a lot about climate change, and I'm going to speed up because I see we've got about 10 minutes. A lot about climate change going on in the news. So a lot of legislation in our local area. Again, I went into this in the last session. I won't go into it too much, but for DC, a lot of legislation, buildings in DC over a certain square footage have to meet a minimum Energy Star score. You guys all know what Energy Star is. Hopefully it's a measuring stick, to quote Meaghan, to grade your building from 0 to 100 on how energy efficient it is. So buildings in Maryland and DC, they all have to benchmark or score their buildings on the Energy Star scale over a certain square footage. And like I said, Clean Energy Act, DC, buildings in DC have to meet, as of, we're in the first compliance cycle now, but meet a certain Energy Star score, and that varies by building type. If you have any questions on any of this, please let us know. We're happy to help. Also, you guys, you see the little icon I have for the Building Innovation Hub. This is a fantastic group of folks that that basically this is an organization that is built to help you, to provide you with all the tools to help you meet those clean energy and building efficiency goals. That is their function. They are there to help, and they can help you figure out how to do that. Maryland for Montgomery County, they actually have a BEPS law, Building Energy Performance Standard, that's currently under review. So that is something that looks like it might be headed our way here in Montgomery County. Common goals and trends. A lot of counties are setting energy net zero goals. Arlington, I believe, Meaghan, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 2050, and I think Fairfax County by 2040, they're trying to go net zero. That's for carbon. They have a lot of the counties in our area have renewable energy goals. And then again, BEPS, Building Energy Performance Standard, they have goals for doing charging stations, so electric charging stations for electric vehicles. So what are private companies doing? Again, I would invite you to review our session from last time too, because we talk about really what are the corporate benefits of sustainability and also energy efficiency. If you think about it, it makes sense. If you're not handing that, if you're not handing that dollar to Pepco or whoever your utility provider is, you can put it back into your business. So more sustainable, energy efficient businesses have better operating margins. So what is Trane doing? Trane is doing a lot. They're setting a great example. I love what they're doing. They have what's called the Gigaton Challenge, where they're trying to reduce, the goal is to reduce their customers' carbon footprints by a gigaton by 2030. And then as a company, you see here on the left too, leading by example, they're also trying to work to achieve carbon neutral operations. So more and more companies every day, we're seeing they're setting sustainability and energy efficiency goals. And, you know, again, they're tasking a lot of you with those. So we're here to help you, you know, use those again to get stuff done that you might want to get done. Had a customer recently who had a really old building automation system. They had to get it replaced, and we used energy to get them money and help get that procured for them. So what do I do next? You know, really, if you want to just kind of flash all these up, Meaghan, since we're short on time, you know, like I said, think about what are your business goals, use those to set your building goals. If you're going to flip the building next year, don't be thinking about, you know, 20-year payback items. Internal and external factors inside your building, you can see over here, the right, you know, what are your functional building needs? What are occupants complaining about? You know, how are your financials? That's going to help you figure out what ECMs you can do, how you're going to pay for them, and how you're going to package them. And then also what's going on in the outside world. You know, what's going on in terms of regulatory. We talked about there's new legislation coming up, you know, in our area specifically. Determine a building baseline, set your energy goals accordingly. Number 4, then do that facility assessment. If that's a formal audit, great. If not, use the folks that are inside your building to help you figure out where's the bleed. Develop your ECM. So after that, find those financial resources. I think we've hit that pretty hard. We're here to help you if you need to, because we know where they all are. Number 6, you know, prioritize your ECMs, complete them as your budget allows. If you choose something like PACE financing or Green Bank, you know, that can help you do a whole project. Or maybe you want to just phase them. You want to group them and phase them and pay cash for them, however you want to do them. And then number 7, please, this is my favorite, most important. We see it all the time, beautiful Energy Star 75 or LEED certified buildings. One year, the next year, they're at a 50 Energy Star score because they've put, you know, everything in override. And please continuously tune your building. That's something that, you know, Meaghan and I and our group, we remotely connect to buildings and we help customers do that who don't have the resources to do it themselves. But for those of you who do have resources, please continuously monitor the performance of that building, because it will go down if you ignore it, or work with somebody who can do it for you. That's all.
So just real takeaways here. Energy efficiency is throughout the building's life cycle. It never ends. So we can help in, you know, the 3 different phases of a building: design and construct, operate, sustain, and restore and modernize. Whether it be, you know, design assistance, choosing energy efficient equipment, again, maintaining in our team, we have applied building insights that helps look at how the building's running. And then in Restore and Modernize, we'll help you understand your goals, your budgets, and then figure out ways to upgrade your systems. So that is all. I appreciate your time this afternoon learning about energy.
Great, and thanks everyone so much. We do have a couple minutes for questions. I believe you can type them into the Q&A chat and we can see them, I believe. I can't actually see them, but Meaghan or Caitlin, if you guys can see them pop up.
So Julie, we have one that says, is Boland taking advantage of the incentives for continuous commissioning?
Yes, we are. Meaghan has a couple of her clients actually that she's helping. They've already applied for them, and a couple more I think we're doing. Do you want to talk to that, Meaghan, or?
Yeah, basically, if a building's connected, we can help you with the application for PEPCO's continuous monitoring-based commissioning application, and then you'll get an incentive for having a service contract. If you choose an energy audit, which I highly recommend, you'll get an incentive for that, and then implementing any of the ECMs along the way, you'll also be paid for that. So it's a great program to help make sure your building's staying efficient.
Yeah, we strongly encourage, it is one of the more involved programs in terms of you have to track more stuff, but if we are, when Meaghan says connected to your building, we mean if we're connected to your building automation system via the internet, which we can do, and we can do securely, and we do it for hundreds of our clients in the area. So again, it's about us kind of taking care of that for you, but the utility understands the value of that continuous monitoring commissioning, so they pay you for it. They pay you for, like Meaghan said, having a service agreement. They pay you for doing an audit. I think it's up to $8,000 depending on the value of the service contract. Did I say that right? And then I can't remember how many cents per kWh they pay you as you implement ECMs. You get paid for doing that. So it's a really neat program that we strongly suggest checking into. If anybody has any questions about, it's the Empower Maryland program, the PEPCO incentives, or we're happy to help you understand them.
I think we have time for one more, so I'll read this off to you, Julie and Meaghan. We have, what is the incentive for a commercial client to electrify their facility to reduce their carbon footprint when, after the initial capital cost to convert to all electric energy, their energy costs increase? Gas heating still offers significant cost savings over electric heat in our area.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, did the question say where that person was by chance geographically?
It does not.
Okay, so it's going to depend on where you're at, and I would encourage that person, I know we're at 1 o'clock, please contact us directly. There are certain areas, because you're 100% right. It's not as efficient to go all electric, and so if you Ken in our last presentation did a really great job of helping understand the carbon impact as the amount of renewables increase in the grid, how it does lower that carbon. So it makes sense from an environmental standpoint. But there are, it's going to depend on, I know we're at the end here, so it's going to depend on your geography and where you're at. So please contact us and we can help you with that. Thank you guys for attending this session with us. We hope it was helpful. And we look forward to working with all of you, and we hope that we've empowered you to do a lot of things on your own, but if you need help, we're here. So thanks everyone.